The Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Doc Bavacqua and Lola Leon Guerrero are my guests today. And of course, we're talking about self-determination, different aspects of self-determination, trying to understand, because a lot of people are confused, of course, regarding that. And of course, again, status quo. We were talking before we went on the break, status quo. It's not an option based on Guam law. But what does that mean? Keeps us right here. Keeps us where we're at. Doesn't move us forward, doesn't move us, it keeps us here. Mm-hmm. It's to me, a repressive status that we have.
Yeah. Status quo is, if the native inhabitants and the rest of the community on Guam are really well educated on this issue, then they should understand that status quo is not an option. It should not be an option, because if you look at so we have become used to seeing ourselves as sort of like this crown jewel of the Pacific because of our relationship to the United States. But the problem is that is kind of a fantasy. It's a colonial fantasy, because as I tell my students, if Donald Trump wins as the President of the United States, next year we could find that all of the things which we enjoy about our relationship to the United States, they could get cut off. And if you live here on Guam, per American legal precedent, your rights belong to the U.S. Congress to determine, and so they allow you to have student loans, to have welfare, to have Section 8, to have food stamps, and they can just take it away. And Republicans have been talking about that for years, and under a Republican presidency, it's more pronounced, because Donald Trump could just say, "What's Guam? I don't know what Guam is. Let's get, let's cut them off. We can't be paying for Guam." What is that, in South America?
And I think that's not only applicable to Donald Trump, but also a strict constitutionalist. Like a Ted Cruz. You see his advertising. I'm a strict constitutionalist. I'm a constitutionalist. So a strict constitutionalist. And so is Obama. Obama is a constitutional attorney as well. And we see how he's responding in regards to the right to vote for presidency.
It's a very good point, because as in status quo, you can be treated like a prince, you can be treated like a pauper, you can be treated like you matter, and that's kind of what we've gotten used to. We get this American-like treatment, but before 1950, Chamorros were treated like garbage. And so it's up to the United States. They get to choose how we are treated, because they own us, and according to their rules, they own our rights. And so the more you know about that, and the more you realize that, yes, I like getting these perks from this relationship with the United States, but I can't really think 100 years into the future based on that, because the next Congress, the next president could take them all away. Like, what does that say about my relationship to the United States? What does that say about my place in the world? That everything I feel gives me structure and order in my life doesn't belong to me, but is a privilege that the U.S. Congress allows me to have.
Now let me ask this, because as we dive into this even more, the more questions I have, the more confused I get as well, right? The role, you guys are both educators, okay? The role of educator, because there's not one place that we can go to say, hey, I need all the information about self-determination. I can't just go one place and say, I want to learn Chamorro and immerse myself in this. That's not what happens. It's a complete immersion. And again, it has to be within the household, within the school. So what is the role of the educator in educating each and every one of us on self-determination, and then ultimately for us individuals to come to our own, view of what is best for us?
And the role of the educator is incredibly important, especially because since the U.S. Navy was governing Guam to this day, Guam schools really uphold the colonizers' belief system, the colonizers' laws, and even our sort of way of viewing ourselves as being less than what America believes is right, or what America believes is considered success, right? And so when we think about our schools, all of our students are speaking predominantly English. All of the books that they're reading are coming from the United States. Sort of their worldview is shaped by people who are thousands upon thousands of miles away from them. And so really getting our students to understand this would mean breaking down a lot of that.
Sure.
How do we connect our students to their own experience in a way that will instill in them the confidence necessary to believe that we can exercise this right, and that when we exercise this right, we will govern ourselves. We can and we will govern ourselves. That happens definitely at home, but in school, where we send our kids for most of their days, their confidence is being shaped, and there needs to be, at a very young age, this belief instilled in our children that they can do it, that we have the leadership and the intellect and the culture and the creativity possible to achieve whatever destiny we want as a people. And to me, that's the role of the educator. Whether the educator is speaking about self-determination on a political level, explaining the 3 status options, or whether they're really just using the native language, choosing to introduce their stories to students to a story that was written by someone who's from here, whether they're taking their students out into the yard at school and planting a garden, teaching them how to grow their own food. All of those things are instilling in these students the confidence and belief necessary that they can decide their future. And that's why I think the educator is important. And you know, the other thing I thought of earlier when Dr. Bavaka was talking about the US owning our rights, they also own our voice in the international community. So what that means is that when Guam is represented anywhere else, we are represented by the State Department, for example, in major negotiations that affect our life. Even this big military buildup that's got our government all twisted and trying to figure out what to do was decided in Japan by a representative from the US and from Japan. And so what we really need to think about here is when we have that confidence in our voice, we will reclaim it. That we should be representing ourselves, and actually that we should represent ourselves regionally too. That Guam, even in our region, we may think that somehow we're better because we have this big US military presence and all of these amenities that come with that. But when it comes down to it, regionally we're powerless. And so an example of this is that the US State Department just gave the deepest part of the Marianas Trench to the FSM, and Guam wasn't even present. And that's something that could be an important natural resource that we could use economically one day, or that and it's something that belonged to us, or we held as part of our identity for so long, and it was given away that easily, and we were gone. Our voice was absent.
There we go. Anyway, I got to take a quick break and probably only have time to say goodbye, but I'm going to have you guys in here next week as well to talk about more of this education process, and thank you for that. But you know, the role of the educator, again, I mean, you'll have to, it cannot just be a concentration on Guam history. It has to be in our math teacher, our English teacher, and whatever else. It has to, you know, when you say you have to, you know, in immersion, okay, then you have to be immersed in this to be able to understand it in totality. Okay? Take a quick break. We'll be right back.